Welcome to this episode of the Smart Leaders Sell podcast. I'm Jess, sales coach and leadership expert, and I'm really excited to bring, I feel like you're just an old friend.
Nice.
I use the word old, not in the offensive way that it's meant. But welcome Rebecca Boulton to the podcast. Yay!
Thank you for having me on.
I'm very excited about this. So you've been in my community for, I want to say, a year and a half. Maybe
later.
Yeah, it's been a while. I feel like we should celebrate some kind of anniversary champagne.
I'm up for that always.
Yeah, maybe the next Dotty meetup we'll just do like a little thing and then just kind of be like, right, okay, let's pop the corks and have champagne and just eat a lot of cake. I feel like that's where we should go with it. But seriously, you are in a really interesting market, and it's actually a difficult one. And I've kind of watched you over the last 18 months work your backside off to change the industry that you're in and the way that people are managing their health, their nutrition, specifically around the menopause and their hormones, right?
Yeah.
And it's a really difficult market, I think, because A, there's so much conflicting advice out there. B, because everybody loves to Google. And I know that you've just written a blog about Dr. Google, so we can talk about that. But it is that kind of thing where actually health and wellness isn't as easy a market as it probably was 5 years ago. You know, when you could just rock up to your local GP surgery, take down some leaflets and be like, hey, if you've got anyone who's going through the menopause, can you just give them my name? So for me, it's been really, really interesting because especially recently, you've had a lot more focus on other platforms. You've kind of come away from the Jeremy Kyle that is Facebook, and you've moved away from that. You've really started focusing on video, and it's been a really huge shift for you, you know, and it's made a real difference.
Yeah, it has made a big difference moving away. I think you get caught up in the Facebook journey and everybody's on Facebook and you think that that's where all of your clients are. But actually, I was ignoring platforms that while I've been on them, I haven't focused on them at all. And since I've been focusing on them, particularly over the last couple of months, I've seen a big difference in the sort of leads that I've been getting from my business, the bookings to talk to me and find out more about me. And then when I get on the calls, the difference that it makes of how qualified they are.
Yeah. And it's hugely about finding quality leads, you know, because I think we all get stuck in Facebook and the Facebook world, especially when we're entrepreneurs. There are so many entrepreneurs groups out there. But sometimes when you're in a different industry, actually Facebook isn't your biggest friend when it comes to getting those candidates.
No, funnily enough, I thought it would be because it's such a personal market and Facebook is a very personal platform. Yeah. Actually moving away from that and going to LinkedIn, the reason I didn't focus on LinkedIn before was because I didn't really get it. Mm-hmm. I'd come from a corporate background. I think I was giving that whole, I don't want to be going down that route. Yeah. And also the fact that I didn't really know what to share on there because a lot of what I share is really, really personal. We're talking about menstrual cycles. We're talking about menopause and hot flushes and things that people don't necessarily want to share on a public platform like that, where they might have a lot of connections. But I found that not to be true.
I think it's becoming more mainstream. You know, I think it really is becoming more mainstream. I think, you know, LinkedIn as a platform is great because it's professional networking, because it's there for sales. I always say to people, I'm like, 70% of my revenue in my first year came from LinkedIn because people on there are looking, they're actively researching, and they want to buy things that are going to help take them away from the problem that they're facing. I mean, I think that there's a point with LinkedIn where messaging becomes an issue where, you know, things, especially topics like the menopause, nobody wants to say the word vagina on LinkedIn. Like that's not a thing, is it? Everyone's like, well, we'll just kind of say.
I wouldn't use that in Facebook, if I'm honest. I'm quite a private person anyway, so, you know.
I'm like, not entirely sure what word I would use. do you go super scientific with it, or do you kind of like go a little bit more? I don't know. Someone the other day referred to a vagina as a foo-foo, and I was like, wow, that's I'm not sure how empowered I feel about that, but it's one of those things. I guess if you've got to put it out on social media and talk about it, you've got to give it a name or something.
Yeah, and I mean, those kind of topics are becoming more out there. I mean, there's a book that was talking all about your vagina that came out last year, and it was exceptionally popular. It did really, really well. It was from the US.
I actually know that book because I have
a bit cringy, but
I really?
Maybe that's just me.
Well, so I have this thing. I really don't like genitalia. Okay. And maybe this isn't the thing for people on the podcast, but I just am not, I'm a bit like Alien versus Predator about it. It's a bit weird and a bit creepy. And one night when I was, a little bit drunk, I mentioned this to my friends who all think it's hilarious. So every single vagina themed thing that they can find, I get given. So I've got books upon books upon books upon anything. And so I'm possibly the person in the world who has the most stuff about female anatomy, who just is not repulsed by it, but I'm just like, oh, really?
Yeah, I kind of go down the route that if I wouldn't say it to my friend or somebody I just met, then I probably wouldn't say it online.
Yeah, I think that's a sensible way to be.
I don't like oversharing, hence why I'm not a huge fan of Facebook, because there does tend to be a lot of oversharing. And I know we talked the other day about it being a bit melodramatic in places, but yeah, the personal side of LinkedIn, I think is becoming more. It wasn't like that a couple of years ago. It is becoming more and more. And, there's a fine line, isn't there?
Yes.
Some people want to see more personal stuff and are happy for me to share recipes and, personal information about the menopause and things like that. And some people don't want to read that, but you know what? They can disconnect from me if they don't like what I'm sharing. Is kind of the attitude that I've taken. That's
the great thing about LinkedIn. You get to tailor who your connections are. And you can actually curate it really, really well. And that's what I think is working so well for you right now, is that you have kind of curated this following of people on, across video, across LinkedIn, all this kind of stuff, who actually are interested in seeing what you have to say. Whereas with Facebook, it is kind of hit and miss. And I think it's become so transient as a platform. People just go, oh, well, if I didn't like that one thing, I'm off, I'm completely disengaged. Whereas actually, I think you do have more time on videos, on podcasts, on LinkedIn to get to know people. And they are more willing to actually embrace the information and use it and try it before they completely disengage and disconnect.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So what is the formal download? Now that we've kind of talked about all the awkward stuff that we possibly could have talked about with regards to
spoke about that today.
Dropping the V-bomb early.
Poor Scott, that's all I'm saying.
I know. He's going to be editing this like, oh, for God's sake, Jess, really? Again? So what is it that you do? What do you help people with?
Okay, so my official bio is that I help perimenopausal women that are struggling with symptoms to manage them naturally through diet and lifestyle changes.
Perfect.
So looking at putting together personalised diet plans, nutrition plans that will help them to manage the symptoms that are affecting them personally, because it is a case that even though as women we all go through the menopause, we all go through it very differently. Some people sail through it, some people will suffer through it. And if you are someone that's suffering through it, my whole approach is about education and to show people that, HRT isn't the only route. It's only one of the routes, and that there are lots of things that you can do to empower yourself, to take control of your own body and emotions that are effective during that time.
I think that's huge, because really it's about choice. How you manage anything is about choice. And I think sometimes we forget that actually we get to make the decision about our bodies. Because, and I do this all the time, I'm like, oh, I don't have time to go to the gym. Really, I do. I'm just lazy. I'll throw that out there. And it is that kind of thing where I think, especially when we have a health condition, we can get really caught up in this is what the primary kind of caregiver, the GP or the hospital, whoever, are saying will work. So I'm just going to keep struggling with this. And even if it isn't working for me, that's all I can do. We kind of accept it.
Yeah, and the other thing is that people go and find forums or they find groups that are other women that are going through the same thing. But what I've found from sort of lurking in them and trying to be involved in them is that actually the people that are in there aren't necessarily looking for advice. They're looking for someone to moan to. And actually that sort of culture of just moaning about it and not actually doing anything about it is exactly the opposite of what I'm trying to do. I really want people to understand that they can take control of it, that they can make changes which will significantly impact how they feel. And so that's another reason I've moved away from that kind of thing and just focused on, education, so that, as you know, I've been doing the YouTube videos so that every single week I'm giving somebody the information. So even if they're not working with me personally, there is somewhere that they can go to get the information that they need and to ask questions if they need to in the comments.
But this is the thing. So I think it's really, really powerful, because I think a lot of places are the same, and a lot of industries are the same. I get a lot of people who are in certain business groups where everyone just moans because they don't really necessarily want to change, but they feel like by moaning alongside other people that they've got a space to vent. And actually, it's just not conducive to positive action. It's not conducive to making a change. It's not conducive to helping yourself. I think there's a point that people have to go through that. They have to realize and recognize themselves that actually this isn't doing me any favors. It's just making me more miserable or more unhappy, before they get to a point where they can go, yeah, great, I'm ready to go out and tackle the problem. And I think that's where you step in and you make it so easy for them by giving them all the recipes, by working with them one-to-one. It's just a really, really nice transition for people who genuinely are just like, I'm sick of moaning about this problem. I just want something to help me.
Absolutely. And like you say, it's the same in a lot of different industries, but particularly in this one, because there isn't an arena for people to talk about it. It's becoming more aware, but it is thought of as a bit of a taboo topic, you know, and as women in the workplace, as women in relationships, as mothers and things like that, it isn't something that was ever talked about when we were younger, and therefore there needs to be somewhere for people to be able to talk about it and be open about it, and not just for women but for men to understand it as well.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think we don't talk about health that often. I mean, I can't imagine saying to my boyfriend, I can't imagine having that conversation, but being like, hey, guess what? I'm going through the menopause. Yay! You know, I can imagine his face being like, oh, God, I don't know what that is really. And I don't know whether I want to understand it. And, you know, it's that kind of awkward conversation. But not only does it have to happen with your partner, it has to happen at work. It has to happen, you know, with kids potentially and, you know, family members. And it's just one of those awkward, just leave me be. I don't necessarily want to talk about it, but some of the symptoms are so visible that you can't hide it either. So it becomes that really hard juggling act.
Yeah, it's one of those things that just needs to be talked about more in the public space. So in the media, on the internet, in workplaces, there's a lot of people nowadays, you know, doing talks in workplaces and things like that, and just being open about it and making it a topic that isn't embarrassing to talk about. Mm-hmm. I think that's part of the problem, is that people just feel embarrassed, and it isn't embarrassing. It's something that 50% of our population is going to go through. So we should be something that we'd be talking about. Imagine if it was men going through it, we'd be talking about it a hell of a lot. Can you imagine them trying to deal with it? Anything like my other half, who is serious man flu. Can you imagine?
I think it's one of those things, isn't it, that I actually think that, and for any men listening, contradict me if I'm wrong, but I think you guys would be quite proud of it. It'd be like, woohoo! I honestly think that they'd be like badgers and excited and like, well, hey, look at this is awesome kind of thing. And I think women just have such a pressure to try and be perfect, that actually it's something that's so visible, you know, outwardly, that it's really difficult to try and mask. And so that makes it more uncomfortable in a way, because women are not like, woohoo, yay, menopause. Women are like, oh God, something that's really visible that I don't want to talk about is happening. And now, how do I manage that conversation?
Yeah.
So what are we helping you with today? Because you've done lots and lots of work on sales, and actually your conversion rates are ridiculous. You know, you close discovery calls like nobody else. So what are we helping you with?
Okay, so my question, although most of my sales stuff has come from you, from working with you, so thank you. But my question really was around how selling is different for a business to business, to business to customer. So obviously what I do is very, very personal, and as women, we often struggle with investing in ourselves. So I think sometimes you see business to business as an easier sell because you have some level of justification. So you might have some kind of monetary value on the investment, but with your health, you don't necessarily. And I guess my question is around, how do I position myself as a business to customer business that is different?
So I think it's a really good question. And I think the bigger question around what's the difference between business to business and business to consumer is really interesting, because everyone assumes that B2B is easier. And having worked in B2B sales, I can tell you that it's exactly the same. It's just as easy or difficult as you want to make it. And that because it's based on a business case, in some senses it is harder, because that business doesn't have any personal tie generally. You know, so for example, when I was working in recruitment, the businesses that we would recruit for would say, okay, well, we can wait another 8 weeks for our HR person to find somebody to fit the role. we don't necessarily need your person right now. We'll interview them, we'll take them through the entire process, but if they're gone in 8 weeks, they're gone in 8 weeks, because they weren't prepared to put a business case together for paying another fee on top of what they're already paying their HR person. So I think in some ways having the personal approach works. It can be a lot easier, especially when you're starting out with sales. Starting out in B2B is a lot of cold calling. And that's pretty much how it is. And it's divided into 2 areas. So you've got new business development, which is very similar to what most entrepreneurs will be doing. And that's all about going out, getting new leads, building new relationships, putting in the effort to get a sale that is then going to be something that will be repeated hopefully over time. The second element to B2B sales is account management. So once you've got a client who is bringing in revenue consistently to your part of the business, so say I decide I'm going to work with Microsoft and Microsoft want to give me 10 sales every month, that then goes to account management. And account managers are people who literally just nurture relationships all day long and phone up and go, do you want anything? No? Okay, cool. Or do you want anything? Yeah. Okay, great. Here, have this. So it's that then is the only easy type of sales that I've ever seen, is being an account manager where you already have all the relationships brought to you and your job is just to service the account and deliver to clients. With B2C, so when we're talking business to consumer and you are the business, that can be harder in terms of especially in the online space, we feel like we have to be vulnerable, we have to share everything, we have to be overly personal. In some senses, we have to share all of the story in order to get the consumer to buy into us. However, it can be easier in that you are one person or one business trying to build a relationship with somebody based on something personal that's happening to them, if that makes sense. So taking it away from being personal to you and taking it into something that's personal to them. And that can be, one of my good friends is an osteopath. He specifically deals with people who've had weird and wonderful injuries. He's not the person you go and see if you you slept on the bed wrong and you've got a bit of a crick in your neck. He's the person you go and see if you've fallen down a mountain, broken your leg in 3 places and you want it fixed afterwards. That's his thing. And so it's much easier when you're selling B2C to become known as an expert within a specific field with a specific mannerism or characteristic or value that sits behind your business. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So when we're talking to people about subjects that are sensitive, so anything to do with health, typically we've got like menopause, infertility, male baldness, weirdly, is a really big market that's really, really sensitive. And if you see or watch adverts that sell products or promote products that are related to early onset male baldness, you'll find that it's actually really sensitive. They don't actually have any bald men in commercials because they're becoming more aware that actually it is a sensitive topic and that men perhaps don't want that blasted out to the rest of the planet. So, we are starting to see this rise in certainly bigger companies trying to act like smaller companies and trying to give a more tailored experience. So if you look at companies like Always, do you remember Always? They're a sanitary towel brand. There we go. Let's just keep it on this theme because obviously I can't get off of it today, but they basically sell sanitary hygiene products. And a couple of years ago, they are a huge company and they dominate the market. They have very, very few competitors who are as large as they are. And a couple of years ago, they went to trying to communicate with their customers in a more B2C, a smaller business type way. And they created this Like a Girl campaign. So it was like, can you throw or what's it like to throw like a girl, run like a girl, all these kinds of things. And they put together these campaigns that were designed to tell consumers that even though they're a huge brand, they understand what it's like to go through the specific challenges that as a woman you might face every single month and how they're there to support that. And I think that actually that's something that works really, really well. It deals with a personal topic, but it doesn't focus on here's my personal experience with it. Here's what I feel about it. Here's all the pain and trauma. It takes it into being something that's quite empowering. Manage your own cycle. And I think that's quite empowering for people to see. Yeah,
I think that's a good point, actually. And that is something that I always try to do, to try to be putting it into a way that women are empowering themselves and taking control of it rather than letting it happen to them.
Yeah.
I do feel like that is something that's kind of missed in the whole area. If you go to your doctors, you're just kind of either dismissed, they might be lucky enough to get a blood test, or you're given the option of going on HRT or just dealing with it, and then sent away. And it's kind of like, you know what? You actually have a choice. You actually do have options other than those two things. And I just think that people aren't necessarily aware of it. They might know. There was on International Women's Day, there was a lot of talk about menopause, and there was lots of different big news channels, women's things like Loose Women, This Morning, those kind of things. They talk about the menopause, but they get people on and they talk about HRT, they talk about how you go through the menopause, and then they go as part of it for maybe like 30 seconds, they might say, your diet can make a bit of a difference. Actually, it can make a massive difference.
But I think this is the thing. We focus on the technical. And again, remember when I always say features tell, benefits sell.
Yeah.
The problem that we have is that we live in a society where everyone gives the features all the time. Doctors, you're on the menopause, you're going to experience this, and this, have this HRT, this will cause this, off you go. Features. Nobody's actually giving the benefits of anything else, exercise, nutrition, anything at all, because they don't understand that because it's not necessarily a feature driven sale, that it's going to make more of a difference, because people are going to be able to see the transformation. That's, I think, where big organizations are missing the mark. And I think also, when you're selling B2C, you have to give somebody a tangible outcome. And the tangible outcome that HRT can give is, it can help you, it can help reduce your symptoms of menopause. Great. What doctors aren't realizing is that actually not everyone wants to be on HRT, and that actually some people might use the menopause as, great, well, if diet and nutrition and exercise make a big difference, I could also use this as a great opportunity to lose the last 10 pounds that I've been thinking about shifting for the last 10 years. I could use it as an opportunity to meet more people, go to a different class like Pilates, yoga, that kind of thing, and actually go out and meet people and all these kinds of things. They're not thinking about any benefits to do with the menopause at all, because as far as they're concerned, there aren't any.
Yeah.
And that again is the difference between a B2B sale and a B2C sale. A B2B seller is never going to pity the person they're selling to. I in corporate never pitied people for having to pay my fees. I was like, I've done a great job and I deserve whatever that fee is, because I've worked really hard and we found the right person and all the other things. When we sell B2C, I think sometimes we get caught up, because we do want to help people so much, with pity. I'm really sorry that you're going through that. I'm really sorry you're experiencing that. And what we then stray away from is actually explaining, well, if you want to make a difference, you do have to invest, and we have to make that an empowering experience. You want change, you have to step up and make that change. Not, I feel really sorry for you. Here's as much as I can give you as possible. You know where I am if you need me.
Yeah, and I think it's difficult to move from that, because you do want to share everything that you know, because I personally come from an area where, my hormones were my own problem, and that's why I specialised in that area when I did retrain in nutrition. And so, because I know what a difference it makes, and I love working with my clients and seeing the difference it makes to them, I think I do just want to share everything, but it's like moving from that, here's all the information that I know and I can give you for free, to getting people to actually book a call with me or click that buy now button on my online program. I think that's the bit that I struggle with. It's like you say, I don't necessarily struggle with actually making the sale when I get people on a call. It's that bit in between, although I am getting better at it and I'm getting more. I think it's that lead in.
I think that's going to come with a couple of things. And I think the first bit is about using your story to build your brand and credibility. So use it for brand awareness. This is, and tell people why you're doing it. This is why. Because you can communicate that on any platform, professional, social, whatever, even PR, to explain to people why you do what you do. And that will generate a buzz around your brand, because suddenly you're not just, Dove or Always or whoever the big names are. you are somebody who genuinely has experienced it and knows the difference, and that's inspirational, it's motivational, and it gives people hope. So you want to use your story as a brand building exercise. For getting people on the phone, that's when you want to start talking about results. So we inspire and motivate them. We can inspire and motivate them with the story itself, but to get them on the phone, to put them in the position of, I need to make the change, I need to take action, I need to do these things, we also need to show them that it's possible and that other people have managed it, and give them tangible outcomes that they can see. So that's where we talk about like client case studies. We share testimonials regularly. It's where we move, slightly away from the how-to content, how to sleep better, how to, make a whatever smoothie, all this kind of thing. And we move into, these are the results you could expect on the other side. It is possible. You're not the only person in the world experiencing it, even though it might feel like you are. This is how these people have dealt with it, and showing them different examples. Show them somebody who gave up wine versus somebody who didn't give up wine. Show them somebody who still eats chocolate every day versus somebody who doesn't, so that there are examples and variety, so that people aren't thinking, oh God, it's another one size fits all solution, because that's not what you're providing.
No, not at all. It's very much a focus on personalised nutrition.
Exactly.
With what I do.
Exactly. And then use your videos, so the recipes and things like that, as just easy lead-ins for things like SEO. And again, they'll build your brand, but they're not going to take away from what people would get working with you in the program. They're there to help them with a clear call to action of, if you want to do this, if you want to be like my client so-and-so who achieved X in X amount of time, here's how you can book a call.
Yeah. So I think people are aware that they do need accountability when it comes to their health, because that's why the slimming clubs and things are so popular.
Oh, well, yeah.
Not because the diet's great or anything like that. It's that accountability that goes alongside it. But I think when it comes to going to see someone like me that's a nutritional therapist, I think there is just a lack of knowledge around what that actually entails, and maybe feeling a little bit scared by what I'll tell them to do.
Yes, I think
actually it is the case that I work with them. I will very much look at what they're doing now and how I can fit their diet in around their lifestyle, and not just a very prescriptive approach of going, right, cut this out, cut that out, cut that out, and you're never eating that again. That isn't how I work at all. It's about trying to find something that really works properly for you. And I just think it's just difficult to get that across sometimes.
But I think sometimes, because, and this is more prevalent in B2C, we focus so much on teaching people how to do things that we forget to educate people on why we're a better choice than going to your local GP or going on the government website and looking at, how many vegetables you're supposed to eat each day. Because that changes all the time. I mean, I remember when it was like 5 a day, then suddenly it was like 10 a day, then it was 7 a day. And it so often that I'm just like, for God's sake, if I eat a vegetable, I feel like I've won, one vegetable. But I think what you want to be doing with your content is having some of the how-tos and the, let me show you how to make the smoothie, let me show you how to do these things, but also, examples of what makes you different from other nutritional therapists. Not as in why you should pick me, but and justification, but what makes you different in that, can people still drink wine if they work with you? Is that like a die hard, no, you can never have a glass of wine again? Or is it something that you go, yeah, actually, as part of a healthy, balanced diet, we could probably come up with something that would allow you to go out on a Friday night with your mates and have a few glasses of wine?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's I've seen you drink, so.
Thanks.
But it's that kind of thing, and that sort of thing makes you approachable and attractive as a business to somebody who's like me, where I go, I don't want to go to somebody and they go, I'll just cut out sugar, because although that might be brilliant for me, I'm never going to do it. It just won't happen. So I think you have to position yourself with your content as, what do you want to be? Are you really the partner for somebody going through the menopause, and you're there when they, have a really rough day and they need somebody to just understand, are you going to be able to talk them off the ledge? Are you the person that's going to go, okay, if you really want to make change, you have to. And so there are going to be some things on your diet we just can't compromise on. So suck it up, princess. Let's go. You have to find your style, and you have to start communicating that in your content, rather than just doing, have this, learn how to do that, know how to do this, etc. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes total sense. And I'll be honest to say, I think mine is definitely more of a partnership relationship in that I am more supportive and empathetic of people. I'm not capable of giving a kick up the arse when it's needed if you're not actually making the changes, because one of the things I always say to people is I can give you all the information in the world, but if you don't implement it, you're not going to see a difference. But helping people to actually implement it into their diet is a big part of what I do, because that can be the hard part. Sometimes people actually know already what they should be doing, but they're just not doing it.
But that's it. And the other thing that you've got to look at is how you deliver that information. You know, you're somebody who, you also do great intensives that are in person and face to face. That's very, very different than going to your GP and kind of getting a bog standard pack of pills or whatever and them going, off you pop. That's fine now. You know, it's a different clientele. It is a different market. And I think you need to make something of that, you know, really talk about, okay, what does it feel like to get away for a day? What, you know, how can you escape your menopause for a day? Something like that is actually really nice, because you go, oh, great, I can go to a spa. I can understand what my problem is. I can feel like I'm not, you know, a total freak about it. I can get advice in a really nice space that is just about me for a day. You know, and then I walk away and I know what I'm doing and I've got support and accountability and all this kind of thing. But it's not support and accountability that are kind of like the 1980s therapy groups, you know, where everyone goes and goes, oh, it's really crap. It's really terrible and my life's just awful. You know, it's not like that. It's a high-end premium experience where you go and where you understand, okay, actually, there is a tailored, bespoke way for me to manage my menopause, just like I might manage any other area of my life. You know, just like I might have planned my wedding in a completely unique and bespoke way, I get to have the same experience with a health issue. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense, actually, yeah. I don't think I am doing that at the moment, so.
I would aim it there, because I think, you know, that gives people an understanding. You want your content, you know, and again, the best thing about being B2C seller is that you can be flexible. You can adapt to the market. You can change things quickly if you want to. And I think for you, your audience need to see some behind the scenes stuff of actually what's it like living with the menopause? Does it really have to be all doom and gloom? Are there any positive aspects to it? Can you still go and do nice things? You know, could you really do a day at the spa if you've got hot flushes every 5 seconds? You know, because a lot of these women are having experiences that they probably quite enjoy taken away. Right, I can't go and do that anymore because this. Can't go and do that anymore because I might feel that. Can't go and do this anymore because that will happen. You know, so I think it's important to kind of bust some of the menopause myths with your content and really talk about, you know, what do people say you can and can't do, and is that really true?
Yeah.
You know, does that really need to happen?
Okay, that's cool. Thank you. That's really helpful.
Yeah? Do you feel better about it?
Yeah, I do, definitely. I mean, I've already, as we've just talked about before, I've already seen quite a few changes in the last few weeks even by changing my approach slightly. But I think it was getting my head around the sort of content to be sharing and how I get across that personal aspect without it being a little bit cringy, if you know what I mean. Yeah. I'm not that person. I'm not someone that goes anywhere and overshares things. I have to know somebody quite well to talk about those kind of things in detail. And so it's not something that I would ever feel comfortable doing on social media. But I'm also aware that I do need to share some of my personal experiences for people to know, like, and trust me. So it's about finding that fine balance between it, and the best way to do it was, I think, where I was struggling a bit.
And I think, again, I would just stay with empowering. You know, you can talk about, and you are somebody who I've seen talk about your story in a really empowering way. You know, how you've overcome things. It doesn't mean that you necessarily need to use that to sell. Like I say, that's a brand builder. That's an explainer of why you got into what you're in. What I would say is that also take some time to put together content around the myths and around things that people don't talk about, and make it more okay.
Yeah.
Make it okay to talk about the menopause. Make it okay to talk about the symptoms. Because if you don't, they won't.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's really helpful. Thank you, Jess.
You're welcome. Is there anything else I can help with?
No, I think that covers quite a lot, actually. That's been really, really helpful. And it's always nice to talk to you anyway. Thank you.
I know. We talk all the time. It's so good. But where can people find you? Because obviously there are lots of women who do listen to the podcast, and I think it is important that we do get out of this habit of making menopause something that you get to be passive about, and you get to be almost like a passive observer of your own health, rather than being an active participant and thinking, okay, if I don't like what's going on with my body right now, what can I do to change it? How can they find you and find out?
Okay, so you watch my YouTube videos, which I release every single week, with a lot of how-tos and education around what you can do to help manage the symptoms of the menopause. You can find me under Rebecca Boulton, the Hormone Mentor. I'm also on LinkedIn if you'd like to connect over there. And my website is www.rebeccaboulton.com.
Awesome. And definitely go and check out Rebecca's videos. One of her videos had like 800 views in a month, which is crazy.
I'm like 950 now, so I'm like...
Look at you. I'm on 950 now. I want to do that shoulder thing where you kind of like move your hand off your shoulder, like shoulder pop. That's amazing. If you are suffering with the menopause, if you do need any help, hints or tips in that area, please make sure you go and check Rebecca out on YouTube, on her website, and connect with her over on LinkedIn, where she does post an awesome amount of content and education around how you can really help yourself through that particular period of time. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please make sure that you subscribe, hit that button so that you don't miss another one, and leave us a review and let us know how you did. I'll see you in the next episode.